Oh, she lives next door to you.
Thank you all for being here, and I'd like to start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance to the Joint
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we start the meeting with an open discussion from anybody who wants to bring up something that's not on the agenda. Is there anybody who wishes to speak at this point? We'll also open that up at the end of the meeting for further discussion if anybody wants to bring up. Okay. Third thing on the agenda is approval of the minutes from February 10, 2026 meeting. Does anybody on the board have any thoughts? Yeah, go.
Item number 6, second paragraph, just a typo, it should be Julie Bernstein. For the attorney.
You obviously read more closely than I did.
So spell it. Bernstein, Bernstein.
Any other comments or thoughts? Yeah, you move to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays? Okay, approved. Okay, the subdivisional land development applications, there are none, so we'll move on to number 5, zoning hearing board applications. The first is case number 02 2026 Saunder Court.
Mr. Chairman, before the Planning Commission this evening is a zoning hearing board application for 1025 Saunders Court. The township received a request for a hearing for the zoning hearing board from Gavin Law LLC. I believe Michael Gavin is here this evening. Good evening. On behalf of 1005 Saunders Lane LLC and Eldridge Inc. regarding the property located at 1005 Saunders Court. As outlined in the application, they are seeking a variance from section 8438B12 of the zoning ordinance, which requires a 100-foot undisturbed rear or side yard buffer when the yard is contiguous to a residential zoning district or residential use. Specifically, the applicants propose to extend the monarch butterfly habitat from the adjacent property located at 1107 Saunders Court across the property line onto the subject property, which is adjacent to the Harrison Hill apartment complex. Additionally, the applicants are seeking a variance from section 8454F1 of the zoning ordinance, which prohibits construction within areas of prohibited steep slopes. The applicants propose to construct retaining walls to stabilize the steep slopes. And the application is scheduled to be heard by the zoning hearing board on March 23rd. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
Okay. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Gavin.
Good evening, I'm Mike Gavin. With me is the Eldridge team. They can answer any operational questions that you might have. The property is actually from a street address on Saunders Lane rather than Saunders Court, even though the access is not Saunders Court. So you see a little bit of frontage it has on the lane. You have to be a building code to use it, but that's where the access is. All the properties surrounding us are institutional, I-2 industrial, but because behind us Harrison Hill is a residential use in the industrial district, there's a 100-foot setback. Likewise, at the top of the hill is the Bernard properties, and again, they have industrial uses, but there's a residential use on it in addition. So that leaves us with a 100-foot setback on both sides. You have the screen? Yeah.
Is this the one you wanted?
The next one. So this shows you what the developable area is under each of these setbacks. So this is the setback because there's the apartments here in the industrial district. A 100-foot setback reduces our property, usable property, to 1.12 acres. Then when you overlay on it the setback from the residential home on Bernard property, we're down to 0.62 acres. Then these steep slopes in this area here reduce you further to 0.57 acres. Maybe a teepee and a couple horses will get done in 0.57 acres, but no viable commercial use under the ordinance fits within that area. What I've met with Mr. Bernard and his son today. They've reviewed the plans and have no objections from their standpoint with the two variances that impact them, which would be
steep slopes here and the 100-foot setback here. Harrison Hill is here, there we go. Mr. Baxter, the owner of Harrison Hill Apartments, has a different view on his side, so it might be best if you let him speak and then we can respond. I don't know that we're going to give him a full response this evening. We had reached out through their counsel when we filed the application, but he's here this evening to raise some issues. We'll address them between now and the zoning hearing board hearing, but I don't work, Mr. Daly works wonders, but he can't work that quickly this evening. So if you would like to hear from Mr. Baxter, then we'll provide a brief response and then answer any questions you might have.
Well, thank you. Mr. Baxter provided me with, I'm not sure what to...
Call a memo.
Okay. Obviously, I got this, 5 minutes ago, and I haven't had a chance to review it. If you don't mind?
Sure.
Actually, Mr. Gavin, you're standing right in front of our live stream camera.
I have a good-looking back, though.
So, I own Harrison Hill, which is directly behind this proposed development. And under the zoning ordinance, there's supposed to be a 100-foot buffer undisturbed. You know, you're not supposed to, it's not just a buffer that you can play with, it's a buffer that's supposed to be left undisturbed. And in the last few years, all the trees from that property, including all the trees in the buffer, have been removed. So, you know, we have a 114-unit, 55-plus apartment community. Our residents, as you can imagine, keep an eye on everything. And I'm here just to make sure that we are protected if the zoning, or excuse me, if the variance is approved. So anyway, there's nothing there now. All the trees have been removed, it's just dirt. So what I'm requesting is that they overload that area with trees. I'd like to get a row of arborvitaes. I'd like to get a row of like a Douglas fir. I'd like to get a row of some hardwood, sugar maple or something, with the idea that in 10 years when the arborvitaes start to crumble, the Douglas fir will look good. In 20 years when the Douglas firs fall apart, the hardwood trees that we put in will look beautiful. And so they want to come within 35 feet of our property line from the 100-foot buffer. And the other concern I have is that, you know, that we don't have any dust, noise, any other issues with respect to what they're going to be doing on the property. And I will say this, that we've been neighbors with Eldridge, they own the lot next door for a long time. We've never had any issues with them. They're very nice people. And I will say this, that we will support their variance, provided that we get the protections that we've asked for in terms of landscaping, in terms of, you know, noise, dust, odors, all of it. So I'm not here, you know, saying they shouldn't get the variance. I'm here saying that I need to be protected in order to support the variance. And, yes?
The trees that were removed, they were on Eldridge's property, obviously, correct?
Yes.
For what purpose were they removed?
I didn't remove them, I have no idea. In the packet, I gave.
Yeah, I have a packet here and can distribute it. But do you realize that we are not,
I understand.
we don't have any power to require additional landscaping. You know, we are planning commission, which will make a recommendation.
2019, 2016. Now it's gone. Everything's gone.
What we can do is decide whether we want to advise the zoning hearing board about the variance or just take no action.
I understand. So I'm just asking that if you support the variance, support the variance to the zoning hearing board, that you include requesting in that.
I've been a professional land planner for 40 years. I've sat on zoning hearing boards, and I know that a variance has to run with the land, not with a personal situation, professional situation. It sounds to me that, given the constraints on their property, not your property, that there's a hardship. And that's part of the proof of a variance, is to show hardship. I personally understand your concerns. And I don't know how the rest of the board feels about
I
it.
think that I've suffered a hardship because that land is covered in trees, and now they're all gone. So my hardship is that there's a 100-foot setback that's not to be disturbed, and somebody disturbed it, and it's all gone.
But that's your hardship
That's a
as an
hardship. Yes, I'm saying
adjacent
right.
property. The
But that has
variance,
bearing on them getting a variance. Excuse me, sir, I apologize.
the variance that they are requesting has to be a hardship on their property, not yours. And I fully sympathize with what you're saying is your hardship, but it's their hardship, given the topography. I'm going to be very bold here. May I suggest that you and he work together to perhaps do the buffer that you would like to see there, and somehow make arrangements where it can be done. But quite frankly, I just don't see the hardship that runs with the land. I see a hardship that topography has caused an issue. And so, quite frankly, I think that two parties ought to work together.
And I'm perfectly willing to do so.
That's good to know.
I would just like the board to know that somebody went in and cut down a bunch of trees that they weren't supposed to do.
Well, can I interject for a second? So this board, I understand everything that you're saying. The body that you want to make that argument to would be the zoning hearing board. As an adjacent landowner, you would get notification of the hearing, and you would be eligible to request party status, and that would be at the discretion of the zoning hearing board and the applicant.
And I agree, we will wait to zoning hearing board also.
So that would be the party. As the chairman said, they can't really make any kind of like determination or recommendation.
I'm not here asking for.
They're just looking at technical aspects of the application and whether or not they should recommend the board of supervisors to oppose the application or.
Okay.
I guess I would raise the concern that we have this 100-foot buffer for a reason. Why are we contemplating eliminating that in this circumstance? What justifies eliminating it? I mean, we put that in place to prevent industrial and residential flows.
Right, but in this case, a residential moved into industrial. His property's industrial. It's not residential. His use is residential, but he developed an industrial property in an industrial district that predated his use. And there are plans approved for this property to go back well before he came. So when he did his due diligence and his title report, all these things were of record. You being the township, have approved the development of this property more than it's proposed 3 different times in the past. So it's not news to anybody. It's an industrial district that they came to. And now the buffer is applied not because of our use, but because their use in the industrial district. Similarly, the Renards have their home on their business property. There's no setback between their own home and their industrial use on their property, but we would have to do 100 feet because that's what the ordinance came to say as it evolved over time. So that's the hardship as it applies to our property.
The only thing I would say is the ordinance was there when you bought the property. My building was there when you bought the property.
Sure.
building's been there for 12 years, properly zoned, properly built, properly permitted, and you bought this land knowing that that was the requirement. And so I'm just saying that for you to blame me for building in an industrial park when you bought a piece of land that had a 100-foot setback requirement and you didn't want to, you don't want to abide by it, I don't think that's fair to me. That's all I'm saying.
Can I ask you a question, Mr. Campbell? Do you have any principal objection to working with this gentleman here with the buffer?
No, as he told you from the outset, the Eldridges have been good neighbors with
We're
him.
arguing here.
Right.
I just want to be protected as good.
Understood. It sounds like this gentleman is willing to accommodate you.
And we reached out, before we filed the application, we reached out. Mr. Nagel's sleeping here, but Mr. Nagel, did I reach out to you? That's a yes. Whether he's sleeping or not, I reached out to him before I filed this application. And we've been good neighbors. Mr. Eldridge and Mr. Baxter have been good neighbors, and Mr. Eldridge landscaped his existing facility that had no requirements on it, correct? So
He landscaped the existing facility, but unfortunately the fence he built is
Is
on
on-
my property.
Right.
So he built a fence on my property.
Yes.
Thank you.
The planning commission really doesn't have a foot in this argument. This is something that has to go in front of the zoning hearing board. Unless other members, feel different. I think I understand gentleman here's argument and I understand your argument, but it really needs to come before the zoning hearing board.
Agreed.
So I would almost recommend, if we were going to make a recommendation to the supervisors, that we recommend the supervisors stay neutral as long as these two parties.
I would agree with you, Corey. Stay
I don't
neutral.
know.
We can't, can it be a condition? We can't.
I
Well,
don't
it's just
think
it's a recommendation to the supervisors. So,
Neutral with cooperation.
right.
Okay, is there a motion from the planning commission to stay neutral or to feel
My
otherwise?
motion would be, we state that we recommend the supervisors stay neutral with the contingency that the neighbors work together for a resolution.
I'll second that. All in favor, indicate by saying aye. Any negative? Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you.
Oh, Terry's not here. We have, that's a good point.
It's up to you. We have two alternates.
Okay, I don't want to choose. But
Who was last seat? Okay, Isabel, you want to?
Corey, thank you. This is the first time you've been up here. Oh, really? Okay, number 6 on the agenda is conditional use application. Chris, do you want to tell us what it's about?
Certainly, give me 1 second. So tonight, before the planning commission is a conditional use application. It's actually application number 2-2025. The application was filed by Westchester University in 2025, and this is for their master plan that is outlined in the township zoning ordinance. So they have submitted, Westchester University has submitted a conditional use application pursuant to sections 84-135 and 84-137 of the township zoning ordinance for a university main campus plan for the property owned by Westchester University of Pennsylvania and West Goshen Township. The plan has been reviewed by urban engineers. Danielle Bear is here this evening from Urban Engineers to answer any questions that the planning commission may university has made certain revisions to the plan document to address comments that were received through neighbor meetings that were conducted in the fall for both residents of West Goshen Township and residents of Westchester Borough. They held 2 of them in the fall, which I believe, and Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, they were pretty well attended.
That's correct.
So we have Brian Nagel, who is the counsel for the university, and I apologize, I don't remember your name.
Conrad Talley.
Conrad Talley, who helped put together the plan for the university. So with that, I'll turn it over to them.
Thanks, Chris. Good evening, Brian.
Brian, just let me know when to switch slides.
Conrad will do that once he gets
Conrad, let me know when to switch
underway.
slides.
Good evening, everyone. Brian Nagel on behalf of the Westchester University and the Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education. Just a little background. I know some of you already know this, but I think it's helpful just to give a little background of the origin and the goals of the master plan. The master plan that about 5 years ago, West Goshen Township and Westchester Borough both decided to adopt ordinances to provide for master planning for the university, so that the university would lay out what it has sort of on its mind, planning-wise, over the course of, a subsequent 10-year period, essentially, is what I'll refer to it as. Both municipalities adopted independent ordinances that provide a procedure for doing that. It requires a number of reports to be prepared and submitted as part of the conditional use application. The goal of the ordinance is to get that planning out there ahead of projects occurring. Under the prior ordinances, any project that the university undertook was conditional use application. But we only know what was coming one application at a time. So this is an idea to get a big picture. And then once the master plan conditional use is approved by West Goshen Township in the borough, by Westchester Borough, any project within West Goshen Township, for example, the university will have to file a land development application. I know you're very familiar with those. So all that this conditional use approval creates is the approved master plan, under which, if the university wants to proceed with one of the projects shown on the master plan, it then has to file a land development application, go through that process for the individual project, at which time you see all the details like you normally do, stormwater management, where access is going to be, where parking is going to be, all those types of details that you see in a land development, As Chris mentioned, we went out ahead of the plan and did similar presentations for neighbors, both in West Goshen Township and in Westchester Borough. We've already attended 2 meetings. I should say the approvals are separate. West Goshen has its own approval process. Westchester Borough has its own separate approval process. We've already attended the Planning Commission in Westchester Borough twice. They made a recommendation, a unanimous recommendation of approval, actually at their meeting last night for the Westchester Borough side of this. We did receive a review also, as Chris mentioned, from Danielle from Urban Engineers. Has the Planning Commission seen copies of that?
Yes, they have copies of the review.
Okay. I have copies. We issued a response to that on Friday. And so this will show you the call responses to the urban engineering.
Thank you.
And while Brian's getting situated, I'll just note that you mentioned 2 meetings in front of the Westchester Borough Planning Commission. We've set it up for the hearings in front of the Board of Supervisors here. So in the event that not all the Planning Commission's questions are answered this evening, there's another Planning Commission meeting in April where they can come back before any recommendation can be made to the Board of Supervisors. So there is an opportunity. Brian and I have discussed that.
Sure. Yeah, you're free to make a recommendation on the application tonight or wait until your next meeting, but you'll see the presentation and then you can decide what you'd like to do. The master plan, once it's approved, is valid for a 10-year period. After that, the master plan would have to be updated for another conditional use application. And of course, if anything changes on the master plan of significance, the university could file an update or request to revise the master plan also by conditional use. Chris also mentioned that there were a couple of minor changes made in response to comments that have been received to date. I think two of those pertain to West Goshen Township and Conrad will detail those for you. If you have any additional questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to turn the floor over to Conrad Talley from Ewing Cole, who is the lead consultant on the master plan, who prepared the master plan report, and then who worked with other university consultants who reported into Mr. Talley in the preparation of the other reports that were submitted as part of the conditional use application. So if you have any additional questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll turn it over to Conrad.
Okay. So, I'll give you the signal.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. So as Brian mentioned, I'm Conrad Talley, the principal of Ewing Cole, here representing a much larger team that prepared the master plan, and as Brian pointed out. Obviously, we were working with a large stakeholder group from Westchester University. Ultimately, the president's cabinet were the leadership group making decisions. You can stay on that one. So, along with Ewing Cole, which we're architects, planners, interior designers, we had Chester Valley Engineers for our site civil planning, OJV for landscape architecture, Porter Cow Consulting for dining consultants, CFP for space utilization. I'll give a better example of what that means a little later on. Becker and Frondor for cost estimators, Watchdog Real Estate Advisors, PFN are our fiscal advisors, money, making sure we can develop implementation strategies. TPD were our traffic and parking consultants, and MGT was responsible for that housing study that was part of the appendix that was presented. Next slide, please. So at a high level, what we're looking to do for the university is create a framework within which we're seeking to guide both long-term decisions, but also near-term development leading up to those long-term developments. To do that, we had to identify at the outset the criteria for what the potential projects would ultimately be, right? And so I'll walk through some of those goals as we move forward. And ultimately, the result is a framework of prioritized projects, capital projects. Next slide, please. As you all know, we're here tonight, both in response to ordinance by Westchester, the Borough of Westchester, as well as West Goshen Township. And the items you see on the left, you are likely familiar with because that's language directly out of your ordinances. So the requirements of this plan are almost identical with some nuances, but generally identical. So this plan is looking to satisfy both from a jurisdictional perspective. In parallel, the university has a requirement to report a master plan to the Board of Governors of the state of Pennsylvania. And their plan has similar requirements, but it's more around the fiscal analysis, creative solutions development, specifically around infrastructure, site, landscape, and buildings. For you all, the ordinance says it's a 5-year outlook. For PASHE, there is a 0 to 5 year, a 6 to 10, and then a 10+ outlook. So again, this plan, we're looking to, for lack of better terms, sort of kill 2 birds with 1 stone and collect that all into one document. Next slide, please. So to do that, we did this over a course of about 15 months. It was 5 sort of steps. The beginning of it was analysis, and I'll go into a little more detail on what that ultimately meant. Developing capital project options, ultimately working with the president and cabinet to develop selection of capital projects and move forward with the recommendations that are before you tonight. Next slide, please. I mentioned that there was a large group of stakeholders, so this just gives you a sense of who some of those people were. There was a core group that we met bi-weekly. We had a large group of stakeholders. I believe it was about 22 different stakeholder groups representing a broad cross-section of the institution and the community. Ultimately reported back to a steering committee that then provided guidance to the President's Cabinet. Next slide. This just gives you a broad cross-section of who some of those people were, right? So academic affairs, athletics, health sciences, the registrar's office, et cetera. So it gives you a sense. Next slide, please. Actually, you can go to 2. So while our plan focused primarily on the main campus, we were thinking about this in the context of the university's position at Exton, which has now been, they've given up that lease and they've moved those programs to the Graduate Center. And then also there's the Philadelphia location that we were considering. Next slide. This is something you probably are somewhat familiar with. The university focusing on the north, or the main campus is sort of north and south as we refer to them. Obviously a large host of buildings, about 80 some odd structures across the 400 plus acres. And then of course you can see the PUCs that are broken between Borough of Westchester, West Goshen, and then also East Bradford. So obviously their property is within 3 different jurisdictions. Next slide, please. The team, as we were doing our work, we weren't starting from scratch. There was a plan done in 2010. It was updated in 2015. There were a whole host of additional studies, like there was a landscape plan done in 2017. So our work began by taking all of that, seeing which aspects of it were still sort of applicable in the current status of the university, and carrying those ideas forward as we were moving into the development of our plan. Next slide, please. And you can go twice. The plan, one of the things when I said we early beginnings assessment, we physically were in all of the university's structures, 80 some odd structures, developing what's referred to as a deferred maintenance plan. So we were ranking all of these systems that you see on the screen here, and fair, good, poor, identifying capital needs to help the university establish a capital budget tied directly to deferred maintenance. Next slide, please. Traffic, we had all major and minor intersections are part of the traffic study, which I believe is an appendix to the report that was presented to you all. The result of that, well, I should start, that there was a baseline study done, current conditions. Through the development of our project recommendations, 5-year and 10-year, they modeled potential traffic, and ultimately the results were that level of service C or better was maintained on all roadways, and level of service D for turning movements.
Can you elaborate on that? I understand TPD did the traffic study. But
So,
I would like to hear more about the traffic.
Sure. So, as I understand it, there are grades. I'm not the traffic engineer, but I can give you the architect's version of it. There was analysis done in both the spring semester and the fall semester when students were obviously on campus. All of the intersections were counting both cars and people, as I understand it.
And this is after COVID?
Yes, this was done, I'm going to not get it right, but it was in the time of our work, so 24. I don't remember the exact dates, but the report has, but it definitely after COVID. There we go, published in March of 2025. So I think the last was in December of 24, probably was one of the last collections, which in this report, you'll see definitions, level of service A, B, C, D, etc. The lower, beyond is worse.
I'm very familiar with that, but
Yes, so my understanding is that the PennDOT standards level of services, C and D, are acceptable, is my understanding. So, and that the other thing I would say is that majority of the intersections, the plans did not create a worse problem than your current scenarios.
with that diagram, what do the red circles mean?
So the red circles, at the time of our study, those were two intersections that were slated for improvements already. The one at the corner of Rosedale and New Street, I believe has started. It is paused, and my understanding is it is slated to restart for completion. The one on the sort of upper right is on High Street, and that improvement has already been completed. It was completed after our study was done.
And those two circles are in the borough. Am I correct?
They are both, yes, although technically Rosedale is sort of a border between West Goshen and Westchester Road.
Conrad, can I just interject on that?
Yes.
So the intersection of Rosedale Avenue and New Street was a requirement for, the upgrades were a requirement for a land development application that was approved by the borough. Is that correct, Brian?
Correct, the SECC project.
Yes, that's further down on New Street. They were required to upgrade 3 intersections. It was this one, the intersection of Church and Rosedale, and the intersection of New Street, and it's further south. It's closer to where the
University.
Thank you.
Campus drive.
Campus Drive. We've kind of been involved on the periphery. We've looked at the plans. The intersection itself, the jurisdictional boundary goes between both Westchester Borough and West Goshen Township. It cuts right down the middle. However, under our intermunicipal agreement with the borough, they maintain the traffic signal. They hold the permits for the traffic signal that's there. So any upgrades, any work is done by the borough. We pave, but that's it. They maintain the signal.
Thanks.
And Brian had looked at the plans previously prior to his departure. He provided comments from our Public Works Department. Our Public Works Department looked at the revised plans and got back to them that we were satisfied with everything.
Yeah, effectively, the intersection improvements in New and Rosedale ultimately received review and feedback from PennDOT, Westchester Borough, and West Goshen Township before it was finalized and then slated for implementation, which is going through right now.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for that clarification. Can you go to the next one, please? So, in addition to traffic, the same organization did a parking analysis. It was a combination of physically walking campus and counting spaces as well as aerial counts. The high-level result of that is that ultimately on North Campus, 80%, this is sort of on average 80% of North Campus spots were occupied at sort of peak times 50% of South Campus at peak, which, you know, at a high level, it suggests that there is parking capacity on campus.
Was this before the trailer put up with all the parking spots?
This report, it includes the M1 lot, and in the report, it acknowledges the removal of, I can't remember the exact number of spaces that they removed. Next slide, please. In addition to the traffic and parking, our landscape architects spent quite a bit of time thinking about the campus, putting focus on landscape gateways, academic sort of outdoor learning spaces, social centers, and then transitional corridors, really paying attention to how people are moving in and around the campus. Next slide, please. One of the things that began to develop as part of our work was trying to get a better handle on where student services are, so outside of academic instructional spaces like clubs or support services, that sort of thing. And one of the things that we found was that there they're sort of spread out around campus, but the goal, one of the recommendations of the plan is to find ways to bring where those programs have synergies, to bring them together where possible. Next slide, please. I mentioned briefly the idea of space utilization. This is just one example. So all of the instructional spaces were analyzed via data from the registrar's office. So understanding which classrooms are highly utilized, which ones are underutilized, which ones are sort of in that sweet spot. And so every building on campus or instructional building, we were able to map out. And so you get a sense of, in this instance, red is overutilized, green or blue is sort of underutilized. So we were able to offer the institution recommendations on modifications to their instructional spaces to better suit student needs. At a high level, the result of the study showed that they had adequate space for instruction. So there are no recommendations in the plan for new academic buildings per se, but rather modifications to increase the ability to accommodate sort of mid-sized cohorts between 20 and 40 students at a time. Next slide. There should be a map there. I'm not sure what happened, but anyway, the high level is our dining assessment. There were, I believe, 12 or 13 different dining establishments on campus. Our consultants visited each one to understand operations, schedule, et cetera. In addition, we did student surveys to get a sense of, call it client satisfaction. Ultimately, the result is a recommendation for, in the immediate, expanding dining hours and offerings based on input we heard from faculty, staff, and students. Long term, there is a recommendation for expansion of about 23,000 square feet of the site student union for dining, as well as a dining concept on the South Campus, which is on the East Brad.
Is there a time frame for that?
Sorry?
Sykes says beds. We should dine.
So Sykes is a student union. Within it, there are dining programs and other things. And one of our recommendations, which I'll get to, is increasing the number of beds on campus. So with more students living on campus, the recommendation is to increase the dining capacity over time.
Is there a time frame for the expansion?
The recommendation for this is within 5 years, but obviously that is contingent on the university's ability to fund projects. To put it in some context, the expansion of the Sykes Union was actually part of the 2010 and 2015 master plans.
The university has been before us with, and Brian was part of the presentation with the hotel down at 202, by the old, whatever it was, Kelly Sports.
The microtel.
Yeah, microtel. And then it seems to have disappeared. That's an issue that I think we have to focus on is, are there plans to expand residential dining traffic in West Goshen Township?
So we're good.
Okay, go
Hopefully
ahead.
we'll get there.
Okay.
I'm giving you some of the context and we'll get to the actual recommendation.
All of the specific projects that are included in the master plan are detailed in the report, and Conrad will cover.
Thank you.
Next slide. Oh, okay, you can go to the next one. So relative to housing, we evaluated all of the housing stock on campus, both those that are managed and owned by the university, as well as what's called USH housing, which is managed by a third-party entity. You can go to the next slide, please. The resulting of that were recommendations for swing space, which you all are familiar with the housing at M1. we established sort of programming benchmark criteria, and what I mean by that is recommendations for the university when they do renovation campaigns for their housing stock in the future, that they right-size number of beds to the amount of space provided for amenities, for example, or the right number of toilet and shower fixtures on a sort of per student, number of toilets per student ratio, more in line with current trends. I would say the probably one of the primary components of this was the identification of the buildings in need of major renovations and addition, as well as strategy for new construction, which I'll get to. And we developed a very sort of specific implementation strategy tied to housing specifically. Yes, sir.
Just a quick question. Is Hollinger Fieldhouse still there? Is that still there?
Yes, on the main campus.
Yes. Ramsey Hall was taken down some time ago, and they put another gym there, correct?
There is a rec center sort of north of Hollinger, yes.
When was that?
The rec center, I would have to get, I don't know the year. That was,
Okay, so they want to turn.
2016-ish, 2018.
So they want to add dorm rooms to Lawrence.
on the Lawrence site.
Okay, thanks.
You can go to the next one, please. You can go ahead. So those are just gives you a sense of the things that we were doing as part of that sort of assessment component of our work. At the same time, we're meeting with stakeholders. There were sort of three very specific themes that began to emerge. And so as we were identifying potential capital projects, the projects that hit these targets of providing connectivity for the campus, improving overall experience, and creating campus identity were the ones that sort of rose to the top, right? So if a project was doing all three of those things, that that was one we were definitely looking to push forward to the cabinet for consideration. If a project was not doing any of those things, it kind of fell to the bottom from a priority perspective. Next slide. Through those engagements, there were a whole host of sort of, I'll call them overarching themes that again was guiding our work. These are in the report, so I'm not going to recite them here tonight, but if anyone has questions, I'm happy to answer relative to those things. Next slide, please. Through the work, well over 100 projects were identified. You can imagine that the institution just cannot take on that many projects at any given time, just from a bandwidth perspective or from a capital outlay perspective. So we had to come up with ways to prioritize those things from new construction all the way down to deferred maintenance. And one of the ways we did that was by identifying projects in sort of specific buckets, right? So we were prioritizing academic projects, we were prioritizing deferred maintenance, student services projects, etc. Next slide, please. So this list, which is towards the back end of the report, represents all of the projects that sort of landed in some level of priority within those buckets, right? Housing, academic, student services, campus improvements, etc. Then from these, if you go to the next, what we did was we began to identify an implementation strategy. You can go to the next slide, please. And what we're going to go through tonight are those that landed in the 0 to 5 year time frame. So what I would say, as I sort of mentioned at the outset, this is truly a framework, right? So these are projects that were identified as priority, not necessarily in this particular sequence, but rather for the university to consider as money is available for these projects within the first 5 years. So to my previous point, will all of these happen in 5 years? Highly unlikely, but that would be fantastic if we could. If you go on to the next, and we'll sort of start in on what some of these are. Now, some of the projects, well, not some, many of the projects are, some are in East Bradford, some are in the borough, and some are in Nova Scotia. We're going to show you all of the ones that were identified within the first 5 years, so you have a broader sense. first of which has already begun. These are in the East Bradford Township South Campus apartments. What's happening here is over the course of about 5 years, 2 buildings are coming offline per year, complete renovation, adding a floor on top, and then do repeat that for the next 5 years. And so the result will be an additional 220 beds on the South Campus site.
Typically, students have cars too, right?
Sorry.
Typically, they're going to have cars too.
Some of them will, yes. So this is typically sort of second year, third year students, right? And relative to that, you could, my understanding is, if you remember that graphic about parking saying South Campus 50% unoccupied, the university has made arrangements for some students to be able to park in that lot across from the South Campus apartments.
East Bradford essentially asked that additional parking be designated for those additional beds. And that's occurring.
One of my concerns is traffic. We already covered some of that, but I see the brunt of a lot of this on residents going South Main Street. I think they take a beating between buses, traffic. It's a narrow street to begin with, and the intersection of those. Has there been any consideration, because you can have more beds down here, to dedicate Stadium Drive? It would alleviate, in my mind, a lot of traffic on Rosedale, and also on New Street, and maybe Jacqueline Drive as well. The students use those as cut throughs to get to 202. And right now, PennDOT is reviewing a project in Wawa moving into Parkers. So now would be a time, I don't know whether you looked at this with your study or not, or it was discussed, but in my mind, it would take a lot of the pressure off of South New Street, as well as maybe Roswell neighborhood. Just a thought. You guys walked about that at all? Steve? Can I get an answer to the question first?
Were you suggesting for the university to open Prague Road or Stadium Road to traffic?
Yes.
That's been a long-standing request.
Yeah.
So, as part of this master plan, we need to somehow deal with the traffic. Buses, cars, again, I don't think South Main Street should be part of, and actually emergency services too, because everybody's bottleneck coming down. Has it been discussed or considered?
Understood. There's no recommendation to open Stadium Drive. It is open during football games, and there's a police officer on the High Street side when that occurs. But there's no other recommendation of Stadium
Was
Drive.
it talked about in the study at all?
It was looked at by the traffic consultants.
And what was the determination?
There's no recommendation of Stadium Drive. I can bring Mr. DiMartino back to the next meeting if you like. I can't answer that question. I'm not traffic.
It solves a lot of problems.
At first blush, I think it seems like it solves a lot of problems, but in reality, I don't think it's the fix that folks think it is, but I can't explain it perfectly now.
Has the university ever thought about putting a cap on admissions?
The university cannot put a cap on admissions. The university has a statutory obligation to educate students in the Commonwealth. Every state system school has that charge under Pennsylvania state law. There's no possibility of any enrollment cap. However, I will say that during the life of this plan, the peak of university enrollment was 2020, 2021. That has dropped off since then. And the enrollment at the university over the 5-year projection period of this plan stays about 500 enrolled students below the 2021 peak. So, what was that? 17,719. all students. That's all students on campus, commuter, online, it's all students.
Graduate also?
Yep.
Is the main goal of the CMP to increase accommodations for more students?
No.
I think you'll see in one of the appendixes, the enrollment data that shows a relatively stable enrollment projections. Probably not for a conversation per se this evening, but I will say that there's a national trend for the sort of, I'll say the traditional 18 to 22 student. If you were to do a search for what's called the demographic cliff, as you know, there are fewer students graduating high school, therefore fewer students actually enrolling in universities. So we're finding across the nation that universities are competing ultimately for less students, right? So maintaining status quo for a state institution like Westchester University is a good thing in the context of many institutions shuttering their doors.
One of the front end big priorities of the master plan, Dr. White, is on-campus student housing. That's where the university is seeing the highest demand for students who, in the past, would be willing to come to the university and live off campus. There's a lot of students now who really just want to come to the university if they can live on campus, and their parents see things the same way. And so that's probably the biggest front-end demand of this plan, in addition to the right-sizing spaces and deferred maintenance that Mr. Talley mentioned. And that's, the plan does include approximately 900 additional on-campus beds to try to meet that demand.
So that would possibly alleviate the problems in the borough of off-campus housing.
We think it will take pressure off of the off-campus, but there are a lot of off-campus students, so it doesn't limit it. That still is a thing, obviously.
So what are the campus numbers? I mean, you have a certain number of beds, you have a certain number of full-time students, a certain number of commuter students. How does that all, those demographics bring out?
So the actual numbers are in the report, but at a high level of going from memory, on-campus beds existing, 5,419 or 5,439, depending on how you think of it. So there are some beds that are reserved for certain emergencies. So at the time of the study, it was 5,400. We'll call it 5,400 for the sake of this. There was a study done in 2020 that identified the demand sort of pre-COVID. There was another study that was updated as part of this work that showed, again, sort of across the market, a higher demand for student housing. In addition to the demand, the university has a significant amount of aging housing stock. So, as Brian mentioned, one of the goals of the plan was to come up with a strategy to not only long-term increase the total number of beds for those accommodations, but the short term is to get those beds on campus to allow the university to begin a renovation campaign over time. And you'll see as part of the report, that's a duration of approximately 15 years.
It won't be.
And the beginnings of that was the 128 beds that you're all familiar with at Lot M1, which allowed the university to stay somewhat bed neutral, to take beds offline at South Campus, do those renovations, get that done in 5 years, take M1 offline, potentially build housing at Lawrence, which then sets up renovation campaigns for the larger buildings like Goshen Hall, things.
So when you say higher demand, number, you say there's 54, 15 beds now.
900 additional is the plan
That's
says.
additional.
So 60, we'll call it 6,300 round numbers.
How many commuters, people, out of that 17,000?
It's multiple, but they're not all coming to campus at the same time, right? Just the staggering of days, etc.
I guess I was just trying to think of a number
Yeah.
that,
So super high level,
that are off campus right now.
So,
Is it 5,000, this is 6,000?
so of the 17,000 in round numbers, we'll call it 5,000 living on campus. We don't know exactly how many live sort of in short proximity. 14 in round numbers, 14,000 are undergraduate, which is the target audience for the housing stock that we're proposing here. So it's just, but we'll call commuters, whether they're walking from off campus on, or riding a bike, or driving, or taking public transportation. If you've got 5,000 out of 14, that's, what is that, 9?
You're still going to be about 6,500 beds. This is all.
Yes, 63. All right, we can move on to the next slide. As I mentioned, sort of in support of the housing that is currently down in East Bradford, one of the things we heard from students, student athletes, et cetera, was a place to sort of congregate and be. So that's a proposal for a commons building which would accommodate the dining that I had mentioned earlier, as well as some shared support, like tutoring spaces, things like that. That's the recommendation for the site. Next. Sturzbecker Hall, this is a project that has been on the books for quite some time. It was recommended well before our work started, and this project is slated to start, the renovation is slated to start construction in 2027. So that's something the university is quite excited to finally see happen. Next slide, please.
Is that going to be enlarged?
It's primarily interior renovations. All right, so North Campus, everything that you see in the sort of light shades of purple represent major renovation recommendations. The darker shades represent new construction. At the outset, Brian mentioned there were some changes made to the plan in response to community input. One of those was at Sykes, we had originally proposed a parking structure, and that has been eliminated from the structure. The other components, just sort of at a high level, in the original printing of the plan, graphically it suggested that South Church Street was being closed and Cerrado was being closed, but that was not our intent. So the plan has been updated to be very clear that the intention is to keep South Campus as is, or South Campus, South Church, sorry, South Church, and keep Cerrado as well, as
Would you repeat that, church and Cerrado,
South-
maybe that open so we can get it?
South Church and Cerrado, yes.
Is that Sykes right there in the front here?
In the foreground, yes.
So that, where they just knocked down the house, is
Yes.
where you're proposing to build that
No.
large addition?
You were in this, Conrad.
Sure. Yeah, happy to do that. So Rosedale,
Okay.
Rosedale Church, High Street. Does that help? Okay. Yep.
The
So
learning center is,
library.
and Swope House are gone, right?
Swope is down here.
Swope is right here.
Or yeah.
Right in there.
Oh, the house. Sorry, Swope House. I'm thinking Swope Music Hall. Sorry. Yeah. So the houses there around, they were here.
Yes.
Yes. So long term, the plan recommends that be open green space.
But the house that you just knocked down at the back, right on
Alumni Hall.
South Church, Alumni Hall?
That one
Somewhere.
roughly in this area.
What's going on there?
That's the addition to site.
So this is Sykes Hall. The idea is that there's a future expansion of Sykes and then open space adjacent.
Is that a raised walkway going across?
So long term, there's a recommendation to replace Killinger Hall with a larger housing stock. So Killinger Hall is right now 3 stories. It needs renovation. And so the idea is to maximize the height opportunity, which is, I believe 90 feet is maximum allowed. This is on the borough of Westchester side of Rosedale. So maximized at 90 feet, and so putting new beds here. The idea was we suggested a pedestrian bridge that would connect the sort of residential complex to the residence hall, that gives students a way to traverse up and across in a future state, allowing some relief of pedestrian traffic.
So the addition to Sykes is consuming the old alumni
It's
building?
in that area, yes.
But is it taking up any of the old, or the current parking lot?
The current parking lot is here, and the loading is roughly here, so it's roughly the same. Roughly the same. So there will probably be some parking removed as part of that, but majority of the parking, this is, was it Norfolk, I believe? Right, the large lots, those are all still to remain.
So really, the building will go along Rosedale?
Correct.
about-
Correct. Yeah.
And then the parking lot behind here?
As it exists. Mhm. Yeah. So just before we get too far, right? This is long term, right? So in the 5 years, there's a recommendation for Sykes, there's a recommendation at Lawrence. The housing campaign to renovate Tyson, Goshen, Schmidt, and replacement of Killinger, that's all over the course of approximately 15 years, right? Because it just time to do the projects and to raise the capital. So, all right, lots of hands.
I don't see a parking garage over there that was talked about.
That's what I was explaining. That has been eliminated,
Okay.
right? So as part of the parking analysis, it's suggested that even in a future state, there is sufficient parking on campus.
Conrad, can I just interrupt you for a second?
The gentleman in the back has been raising his hand.
Yeah, can I, Mr. Chairman, do you want us to answer questions as we go, or go through the whole plan and then answer
It's a
questions?
good question to ask of me. I appreciate the whole presentation. I'm not sure how far we are into it. We have people in the audience that are raising their hands and want, to ask questions.
I mean, I think it makes some sense to answer the questions why we have the slide up, rather than going back to it. I just want to make sure procedurally you're okay with that and understand we have to get through the whole
Okay,
presentation.
it's after 8 o'clock. How much more of the presentation do you have?
How about we do this? There's about 10 projects, right? So
In the 5-year window, you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I will do is if there's a question relative to something within the 5 years, we'll look to answer it. I'll either say, yes, I'm going to talk about it when we get to that, and I hope you'll be patient. And if it's something that's not in the 5-year, I'll let you know that. And those, maybe there we can come up with a way to answer those.
Allow me to ask you a question. Of the group that's here, how many are from West Goshen versus Borough?
Let's go.
Okay, so we have a whole group of West Goshen residents.
Taxpayers.
Of course. I am too. If we can focus more on what the impact would be on West Goshen, I think that would be a good direction for us to go, and then open it up.
Okay.
And this gentleman's been raising his hand for
So
about
maybe
10
we'll
minutes.
work our way to the left side.
Well, this is with regard to the next 5 years, and it's West Goshen.
Mhm.
There's 4 houses left between Cerrado and High on Rosedale.
Yep.
I live in one of them, and I'm wondering why none of them are indicated on your map.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is just, it's a rendering, but, so when you look at the plans, those houses are still there. There's,
Okay, but
Yeah.
university tends to render without our houses there.
Yeah.
They tend to put some trees up,
Yeah.
but for 30 years, they've had maps where my house is on. And I'm just wondering why you have that default.
so, again, it's an artistic rendering with focus on the campus. There was no intentionality. And there are little houses,
Right, since
you know,
you've knocked
as
down
you,
3 houses in the last month, you can understand our concern.
those were houses, as I understand it, that have been slated for demolition for quite some time and are university-owned properties.
Right, but I'm saying.
Historic
it
houses.
does give you pause.
Sure.
When you're living in the remainders.
There's nothing.
So there's no
proposed in the master-
recommendation.
Hold on a second, Conrad. There's nothing proposed in the master plan that impacts any of those homes in terms of those properties. So they are on the maps, and there's no proposal to have them anything other than there in the
Okay.
future.
Thank you. Yes,
Quick
ma'am.
one. Below Big Purple there, the new Sykes part, the rows of beautiful shrubbery on either side of what? I don't know. That used to be South Church. It is
South Church is right here and would remain.
Okay, that's on, okay.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Okay, can we allow him to continue
Yeah.
with his presentation and then come
Okay.
to questions?
All right, if you would go to the next one. Going back to the deferred maintenance, there's need across the entire campus, but we are recommending that the university put focus on their historic properties, which are primarily around the academic quad, and you can see those illustrated here. Next slide. I won't spend any time on this. I think, well, just for the audience's general information, there is temporary housing put on what was known as Lot M1. 128 students are currently living here. As I shared before, this allowed the university to take buildings offline at South Campus with the purpose of renovating those, increasing the total number of beds so that these can go away within 5 years of them being put on the site.
How many parking spots do we use there?
I don't remember the total, but there were 68 of the larger lot that remained. The study that was done independent of our parking study showed that there was capacity, you know, across the campus for those
We're all parking on
spots.
my driveway.
Well, that, I think maybe there's a way to reach out to the university, but I can't.
They don't own the property.
Next slide.
Real quick, Isabella had a question.
That was my question.
We can find that out and make sure we're able to answer it.
There was a separate conditional use application for that project.
It was approved.
And there's, yes,
Okay.
yes, and there is an exhibit that showed, what I was gonna say, I don't remember the exact number, but there's an exhibit that shows that, and those come back online when the modular housing is removed. And there's a time limit on the 5 years, correct?
Isabella, if you want to see, I have the file, if you want to see any of it, just let me know.
No, I thought it was proposed, but it's already approved.
It's already approved and installed, and the time clock is ticking.
Right. So in addition to the South Campus, there's a proposal to raise Lawrence Hall, which you may or may not know was a dining hall that it's been vacant now for several years. So the site, it's clearly not being utilized, sort of what we would refer to as highest and best use. So we are recommending student housing on this particular site in addition to student beds. You remembered I mentioned this idea of consolidating student services. There's a recommendation for the ground floor of this building to take on some of those student services, yet to be determined on what specific programs those would be. But we are recommending that be done at this site in addition to student beds. The site can house can hold a building of sort of 6 to 8 stories, which is what is limiting that bed capacity.
Conrad, can you just orient by showing where New Street is on the current view?
Sure. Yep. New Street is here. So the Student Rec Center is here. Those of you that know the SECC building, that's here. The water tower.
Where's the current dining?
The major dining hall is in the SECC. But there are plus or minus a dozen facilities across campus, but that's the major one. Okay. The Science Center complex is being recommended for phased renovation. So when we did our deferred maintenance analysis, significant amount of deferred maintenance such that it makes more sense to just tackle this as renovations over time. Next slide. The old library, in a similar fashion, significant amount of deferred maintenance, therefore a recommendation for full renovation, assuming the university can find home for the people that are currently in that building to take on that work. I will say this particular plan is an example of the work that was done back in 2017. They had some great ideas for how to make that site a bit more accessible. And so those ideas are being carried forward as recommendations as part of this plan. Next slide, please.
The ram's not going away, is it?
Sorry?
The ram?
The ram, there are 2 thoughts about the ram. One is that it could stay, and one is that it could become a sort of an anchor to what is now North Church, right? So you know those streets offset? So there could be an expansion of green space.
Still South Church, North Church would be in town.
I'm sorry, the south part of South Church. Thank you. I clearly don't know your town as well as you do. Nor should I, right? Next slide. The library. The library renovation has been on the books since 2010, 2015. Next slide, please. College Arms, I will say College Arms is not technically in the PUC, but we are recommending renovation, again, trying to improve housing stock where possible. Next. Geothermal, this is one that some of you all probably are interested in. What you see in the sort of the darker shades of pink are sites of geothermal wells that already exist. The things that are indicated with dotted lines were part of a study done by a different engineering group when they came up with the plan to put the wells where they are now. They had identified potential future sites, and so that's what these are represented. If and when the university were to move forward, they would have to fall into the same realities of setbacks and things that exist, right? Yes, sir.
All right. Is within the dotted line, are they within the 0 to 5 year plan?
The geothermal wells, some of them, yes. Whether or not it would happen, don't know. Our recommendation is to do the well field here first, primarily because it is sort of at a border of residential properties. So by putting the geothermal field wells there, it creates a essentially permanent open green space long term.
So the ones along Rosedale,
yes,
right there,
mm-hmm.
They won't necessarily occur before that area is turned back into green space where they just demolished the buildings.
Here, for example,
Yeah, right there.
it's to be. It could be right. So if and when the university moves forward, they will have it'll have to be engineered, and they'll make choices about whether it would be here or here. But our recommendation has been to start here. Okay. Any other questions on geo?
Can everyone be quiet for a moment? There's all the questions.
Comments on this project and specifically for Goshen, West Goshen. Continues with your presentation.
Yeah. I have a little bit more. Yeah. Next. Rosedale improvements. So we were talking about a future bridge. That's well beyond the 5 years, right? So the idea along Rosedale, these are the improvements that are already sort of underway, and they're going to continue. We are recommending some traffic calming to help ease the transition of students as they're coming to the Union, and then traffic calming as well at the corner of Rosedale and High. And that could be anything from just changing materials, speed tables, things like that. But any of that work obviously has to work its way through PennDOT and other jurisdictional reviews. Yes, sir.
Has any consideration been given to the intersection of Roslyn and Rosedale? About tennis courts? Yeah.
Roslyn and Rosedale, not from a pedestrian perspective. We would like to encourage the students to be coming here and here.
So it's not the students so much as the staff. A lot of staff park.
Because the staff are parking down in here.
So they're coming across, they walk across there all the time.
Mhm.
And cars that are coming out from Roslyn, first of all, have the conflict of people coming out from the parking lot of that building, including buses half the time. So you got pedestrians walking across that intersection, cars coming out of the Roslyn, cars coming into Roslyn, and cars coming out of the city area, across the street there. So that's a big problem that serves the middle here right now.
All right, can I address something with that as it relates to the intersection of New and Rosedale? To the pedestrian question. So part of what was going on with New and Rosedale was enhanced pedestrian improvements. So there is going to be some signalization for pedestrians. And if you notice along Rosedale Avenue on the township side of Rosedale, the university did install like some pedestrian pathways to sort of provide some funneling there. There's going to be an enlarged refuge area for pedestrians as well. That was actually something our public works director wanted done, and they've addressed that in the final plans that are going to go into construction over the summer. So the goal is to try and funnel pedestrian traffic to where it's signalized down there. And they're going to upgrade this, the part of the plans are to upgrade the signal to provide like dedicated left turns and make it more pedestrian friendly.
Well, those people who are crossing there now, they usually walk down towards sites and come across the crossing, but they don't. And so they're not going to do it.
I mean,
again,
the goal is to kind of make better opportunities.
Right.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Back to the Sykes modification or expansion. Is there a plan for the Mescomer house and the property next to it to be demolished to expand that Sykes expansion? Mescomer house and the other building are on Rosedale. Church of Rosedale.
Basically where your finger is.
So yeah, there was one demolished now.
That's
Right, but there's a house in front of that that's on Rosedale.
On Rosedale, there are
Yes.
two properties the college owns.
Yeah, that the college owns, and my understanding is those are slated for demolition. Yes.
And they are all.
I'm remembering that right, yeah. And these were the houses that you were referring to earlier? Yes, sir.
When you demolish, do you ever do any salvaging of beautiful, well, it breaks my heart, obviously. Is the history, like,
Yes.
just,
Yeah. Kaput.
Yeah. So yes, the answer is yes.
you do?
Me personally, no, but yes, things are salvaged, yes.
Oh.
Next slide, please. I believe this is the last one. So this is the idea of expanding the Psych Student Union. So you get a sense of the scale of it now. When the building was built, the student population was significantly less. It's as I mentioned, this expansion has had different iterations all the way back from 2010. We reevaluated those past plans, updated our numbers to reflect some specificity around dining needs, as well as expansion of social services and spaces for clubs and events as well.
What's
Yes.
the number of beds that you plan to put in Sykes?
0.
I thought, okay.
0. So the purpose to expand was primarily related to dining in response to more students living on North Campus.
It just said beds next to site, so it was a little confusing.
Fair enough. We could probably make some
Not that I
changes
see.
to that.
All right.
I believe that was the end of the projects. If you, yeah, so this just is, maybe we'll just leave this one up. Because these are sort of things on North Campus.
One quick question.
Can I, I'll get,
Yep.
yes, yes, sir.
So, my name is Dan Schatz, and I live in the old Roslyn neighborhood down South Church. Our property adjoins the detention basin, and then on the other side is the Sykes parking lot. So that's where we're located. A number of us here today are from that neighborhood. First I want to say I really appreciate you taking into account our community feedback particularly around the parking garage, which would have had a major impact, and the closure of Church and Cerrito. So I'm glad that those are off the table. What I would ask, at least the version of the plan that's on the township website, maybe things have been corrected since then. But there's a lot of places where it still shows various of those projects. So for example, on page 24, there's a list of recommendations carried forward from the previous plan, and it includes multi-level parking structure behind Sykes Student Union. On page 94, I think it is, I'm not going to go through all of them.
So we have reissued, and all of that has been removed.
I sent that to the township today, so they can post that on their website.
Okay.
So there's initially when we resubmitted the updated reports, there were swap out pages. And so what you had to do was look at the swap out pages and go back and compare them to the original report. Then we got a request, which is how we were asked to do it. Then we got a request, can you update the whole report so that it shows the swap out pages in the report? So actually both versions exist that show the individual pages that were swapped out to show the changes, Sykes Garage, the Cerrito, and some of the other changes. And what I think Mr. Bayshore intends to update on your website is now the February 2026 updated Ewing Cole report, which has all those changes incorporated into it, as well as the master plan, the Chester Valley master plan.
I really appreciate that. I will. I have a list of, like, for example, 8 maps that all show different things about Cerrito and Church.
There were more than 8.
Yeah, I know. There's no way I found them all. But I at least give you my 8, and you can check them because more eyes helps. But I really appreciate that. I just trust that when the Planning Commission moves to approve something, it's just really important for me as somebody living in the neighborhood that every part of the plan reflects what the plan actually is. Because I feel like 10 years from now, who's going to remember what's there by mistake and what's there on purpose? I hope that that's a priority. I have a couple of other things that I just wanted to mention, if I can.
A point of clarification, though. The Planning Commission can't approve it. We make recommendations to the supervisors.
Yes.
And I just want you folks to realize that we consider what's being proposed, and we can make recommendations. But it would be the supervisors that, if there was something to be approved, they would handle that.
Thank you so much for that clarification. Okay, the other things I just wanted to quickly mention. The traffic analyses you did, at least the one that I saw on page 75, doesn't show that an analysis was done from Norfolk. And the majority of traffic, I would say, on Norfolk is feeder traffic for the Sykes parking lot. So it's very important that the traffic impacts on the local communities, pedestrians, school children, as well as those of us just trying to get to work, are taken into account. I would request that you maybe consider a sidewalk along Church, south of Rosedale to Norfolk, and also from Norfolk into the parking lot. If I over here, if I could.
May I, would you mind pointing out where you're?
Okay. I'm talking about here. And one of the reasons is because previously, students could cut through here and have a clear, safe path to the other side of Sykes. Now they're going to be walking out here and around if they're coming to this part of campus. I mean, there's also school children in school. It's been an issue for a long time. And this street, which was also not included in the analysis, gets a lot of university traffic as well as our local traffic. So some kind of safe pedestrian walkway from here and there would be just helpful to consider.
Sir,
Yeah, that roadway is very thin.
One second, please, just so we one at a time. Can you identify the roadways that you were just pointing to? Where
I was
you were suggesting there would be a
yes.
sidewalk.
This is South Church, south of Rose.
Please, 1 second. I cannot have multiple people talking at one time and try to understand what the gentleman is saying. There are two roadways that you pointed to that you were suggesting, I think, at the time of the Sykes expansion, there would be consideration for a sidewalk.
Yes.
What are those roadways again?
South Church from between Rosedale and Norfolk, and Norfolk between South Church and the parking lot.
Thank you.
Can I jump in on that? Can I just steal a little bit of your time, because it's the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay. So I live in the Roslyn subdivision down Spruce Avenue. So we walk to town all the time. Right? What's not on this map? This is Roslyn Avenue right here. Right. And then it goes on Spruce over here. So we walk up Spruce, and if we want to get to town, we got to get through the Sykes complex one way or another. So your choices are you stay on Roslyn, right up through here. There are no sidewalks. It's narrow. You got people coming out of here turning, people coming to this parking lot turning this way or that way, and we turn illegally all the time. So there's a little tiny bit of sidewalk right here, and that's it. So neither side of this has any sidewalks. And then you can go into Sykes, well, that's on Norfolk right here, no sidewalk on the side. Especially when there's snow, it's narrow. My son uses a wheelchair. He can't jump onto the grass to get out of the way of the car if he has to, right? Then you get over here, and you want to get out to Rosedale, your only choice is to go through the parking lot, and there's no sidewalks in there. And you got the cars circling around looking for a place to park, and they come around the corner, and so that's my main problem with this. And with this, you're more than doubling the size of this facility, and I don't see where anything considered how many trips per day are there now, and how many trips per day that are going to be once you do this. So even though there's adequate parking for everything, and the enrollment's not going up, and the traffic's not changing, none of those studies, the parking or the traffic studies, consider the way you're redistributing the campus utilization. You're moving all these functions in here. It's going to bring more people there. The parking for sites is already inadequate. And what happens is people come in, they circle around, they don't find parking. Then they come out here, they turn illegally, go through our neighborhood, and go to South Campus. Or they come out north of it and go over there to the...
Mr. Diskey, I just want to make one clarification. Yep. That's not being moved there. That's being expanded there to create more space for the existing facility.
What's not being moved?
The Sykes expansion isn't relocating from somewhere else. That's expanding the existing undersized facility.
Oh, I understand. But what I'm saying is that things that are happening other places on campus now are going to be happening there now. Or more people are going to be coming in. You build a bigger building, you got more people coming to it. Or else you don't need a bigger building.
I think that's a Conrad question. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, conceptually, yes, but the idea is that the dining there is underserved, right? So we've got to expand hours, expand offerings, and create more space, right? The other part of it is the services that are being done in those facilities now, they're not big enough. So like student government, you're jamming students into tiny rooms, and they need, so this would give them appropriate space for the functions of the students that are currently using the facility. Now, to your point, I mean, there's no way you could say you expand it and you're not going to have more people. I mean, yes, there's going to be more people, but the primary function of the building, who it's serving, of the 17,000 student campus, the goal is to right size the facility to accommodate the campus.
So your point is it's not going to double usage, but it is going to increase the usage.
Likely.
Right.
Yes.
So is
Yes.
that considered at all? Because I'm saying, we have a problem now. We have a traffic problem in our neighborhood, and you have more effect, and then.
Dan, I can't hear what you're saying.
Sorry, we have an existing traffic problem right now. That's people cutting from South Campus to North Campus, showing the road. A lot of them are coming out of Sykes. The township did some stuff to try to make this better, but everything they did gets ignored completely. Like coming out of the parking lot over here, you're only allowed to make a left, but they don't make it right. Coming out here, you're only allowed to make a left. So over here, they come in where they shouldn't, in terms of, So we have a problem now. This is going to make it worse. Looking for ways to make it better.
I appreciate the
I'm not
perspective.
looking for an answer.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
So my only other thing, really quickly, was just, and this is maybe beyond the scope, but with the geothermal expansion, when the original wells were put in, there was a lot of noise for 2 summers, all day, every day, from 8 a.m. to, 4 in the afternoon. And I would just hope that, I'm way into renewable energy. I would just hope that there would be some guarantee by the university that better steps to protect neighbors from the sound pollution from the construction of that many geothermal wells would be taken. So, thank you.
Is there more to the presentation?
Yeah.
What I'd like to do is open it up for general questions as it pertains to West Goshen. And let's say limit it till 9 p.m.
This lady's been waiting patiently.
My name is Holly, and I live in, we have a unique circumstance of having our driveway in West Goshen, but our home is actually in East Bradford. Wouldn't mind going back to the South Commons slide. Appreciate that.
South Campus Apartments?
No, not the one with the dining hall.
Yeah, this is good.
Okay.
Yep.
Those buildings in the right top corner there, that's our house.
Yep.
Right there.
Yeah, so these are existing
Right.
apartments.
Right.
Yep.
So, this is a general comment to all of you as I consider, as you consider this. We're very familiar, my husband and I, with the university. We lived in the borough on Minor Street for 27 years. We moved to our current house right there, mile south, 2.5 years ago because my elderly parents who are 90 moved in with us. We beat the ranch house. We were very happy to be around the university. We had a good impression of it. And since these projects have started, we have changed somehow. And my biggest concern is the university does not seem attentive to the community as it started. They did attend the meeting that was held. We received one letter, and since then we have seen within the meeting was held, is they're seeking a permit, and I had comments during the meeting, was contacted by the legal team afterwards. We were actually, when the meeting was held, we were on vacation, like 2 or 3 days after the meeting. So they called me in the morning, we were actually flying out, I said, I can't talk right now, but I'd like to talk more. So they left a message one more time, and then I followed up a few weeks after, and we have not heard back from them since then. Meanwhile, about 3 weeks after that meeting was held, the project went ahead and started. They're actually starting on the 2 buildings right next to our house. So we hear that noise all day long, especially the beep, beep, beep of the things going backwards. It will drive me insane. Because I'm caring for a 90-year-old man who's on hospice right now. I'm home all day. And we are listening to this, but I have not heard back from the legal office about my concerns. We have had trees go down the barrier that used to be there, like I said, started when those buildings were made. We've been on our property, 7 major trees, they're all on our property those trees off, they cut down more, so we are looking wide upon this construction project. It's open, there's no barrier. It's a bummer because those buildings that are being grown, you know, I think they're four-story buildings. I think they're going to build a fifth-story because of the bottom level and it's three-foot. They put into our house, and now they're going to be looking down into our house, which we dislike. We really like. I mean, we're planting some trees, but we'd like, you know, we'd like to have a discussion of what areas we are having incursions, students onto our property and our neighbors. If you talk to them, especially during the football games, I understand this.
Are you in East Stratford?
We are technically, our houses, but our driveways in West Goshen. So we are
you're an East
property
Stratford
split.
resident.
Our houses, right. So, but we got invited to West Goshen meetings, I guess, because technically we are sort of West Goshen. So I asked at the meeting.
The notification radius doesn't stop at jurisdictional boundaries, it's just based on so many people.
If you left a message in my office after I called and left you a message, I never received it, but we were trying to set up a meeting with you, so we're happy to do that.
Just one thing I would mention is we've talked to many of the people who live, there's townhomes that live on that like road right there, and they look into all the buildings here. There's a potential dining hall, they'd be looking right at it, their front yards. I asked a lot of them, had they received a letter, because during the meeting I asked if there would be a meeting for at least Bradford people, and during the meeting they said it would be later. And they, at least those who I've spoken to, and I've spoken to many because we walk our dogs back there, so they haven't received, there never was a meeting, and they haven't received information about this. They were surprised to hear about all this that was going on. So anyway, my biggest concerns are the incursion of students into the property. Well, they already cut across the grass and now we're along the perimeter of my house. They come into our yard, they play on our tennis courts. My neighbor who lives in front of us will tell you after games he has students peeing on his property, and he actually had to build, in order to try to stop this, he built a metal fence around it. I raised the issue, we're having now 200 more students coming into that area, and what is the university doing about how incursion of the students into the neighborhood? Secondly, we are concerned about traffic. I mean, we live, it's my driveway, and there's kind of like a chokehold at certain times of the day. I was really curious about why that stadium road has never been opened. I know that it's not nature preserve, but that certainly would solve a lot of issues. But we're also concerned about like the additional cars from the students. They addressed the issue that in the meeting. They said, oh, there's already enough room for parking. Not really concerned about parking as much as the cars going up and down. And if there's a new dining hall, there's got to be food trucks servicing it, and more waste management going on, and that's all our neighborhood, up and down, and around these houses. And I'm starting to get the feeling that the neighborhood is sort of at the mercy of the university, and we don't have a voice.
You know, I really don't want to be dismissive at all. There's only a limit to what, as a planning commission, we can do. I appreciate the fact that you're expressing concerns, probably best directed to Brian and the university, and your concerns are real. I recognize that. But you know, I raise my hand and say, there's not much we can do as a planning commission for that, you know, for those concerns. You know, it's a conditional use application. It will eventually go to the supervisors, and I shouldn't say eventually. It will forthright go to the supervisors, and if they have any ability to address those concerns, we really don't. You know, and again, I don't want to be dismissive. It's just that we have limitations.
Can you speak to the supervisors?
Yeah.
It's good you're telling us this, so we're aware, and then we'll make recommendations.
You should be attending at East Stratford's supervisor
Yes,
meeting.
yes, I'm attending by their offices. And also notify
Thank you for your comments.
Yes, ma'am, and then you,
Another person?
her, yeah, you don't, yeah.
Lynn Reinhardt, I live at 806 South High Street. Back to the Sykes Student Union expansion. It was mentioned the traffic increase, and so that really does need to be looked at. I understand that most of the expansion is going to address on-campus students, but the reality is there is a lot of traffic on Norfolk now, as was discussed. But from a planning perspective, there are two things in addition to the traffic. One is a buffer to the neighborhood. So if you look at where the expansion is and where the Alumni Center has been removed, if there could be, it was just talked about the sidewalks, but some sort of a buffer between the campus. I mean, I see some trees, but I don't know what other planning can be done there. But between that expansion and the neighborhood, that would be wonderful. And also, further down where the two historic homes were already removed, those homes were large. And they provided, it's a shame that they're gone from a historic standpoint, but also they provided a buffer to the neighborhood. And those are now gone. And I don't know what the plans are for that space, but I would ask that there'd be some consideration that there's a division between that property and the neighborhood. So it's not just opening up the neighborhood to be, you know, front and center to the students that are going to use that green space. You know, those are our homes there. And also, right now we have a problem, we've had a problem with the trucks that service Sykes. There are tractor trailers that are not allowed to go up and down Norfolk, but they do. And I've contacted the university several times and let them know what's happening, because, you know, they control where they tell their drivers to come and go. And there is, and I don't know where it is on here, but there's some means of getting the trucks in and out of that area that doesn't involve Norfolk, but the drivers don't always take it. And I had my power ripped off of my house by a truck a few summers ago because it wasn't supposed to go down Norfolk, and never did recover any of the damages for that. So I don't know how this area is being serviced or how it's planned to be serviced, but I would expect with an expansion there's going to be even a greater need for servicing that, and I would ask that that is not through the neighborhood.
Thank you. The gentleman in the...
Yeah, Mike's South Church Avenue. I think what I'm about to say will trigger a memory maybe for you, John. You and Ryan were talking about the connector road stadium drive between New Street and High Street. I think the last 10 feet was owned by East Bradford, and they were they didn't want anything to do with opening it up. You remember that?
In fact, they said if Stadium Road were open, they would put a cul-de-sac at the M&T Road.
Yep.
Was that the guy who was the alumni who was on the board?
I can't remember.
At the time, that was the problem with East Bradford.
Maybe they changed their mind.
Maybe, but yeah, that's what you're facing.
T only goes south, you can't go north. That's one of the problems. Is that the students need to access north, they have to go south from 202. If you go out that T.
Right.
Can't go north.
Yeah, you're right.
So it doesn't solve their students' problems of getting to one campus.
There's another gentleman with a raised hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to, the assumption is that enrollment isn't going to increase, that they're filling dormitories for students who are commuters who would like to, or who live in the community who would like to be on campus. But they also admitted that there's no sense of capping the the school doesn't have to have. So the reality is they could fill 600 new students and still have the same amount of commuter traffic coming in. And so I just wanted to put emphasis on the traffic. As soon as, if you build those buildings and people come, you are going to have to build more parking lots and more things. I know that they said 50%, but a lot of those are event parking, which is different than resident parking. And where I live, I know the resident parking is full, even though the event parking is a lot of times 50% not full. And so I would just look at that, take a look at that, because you can't fill up the event parking with residential. And I think it's going to be a problem, the traffic and those things. If you were looking just at the, the smallest amount of possibility of students coming in, I think you have to look at the maximum number of students who are possibly there. So I think
Brian, is that something TPD can address?
They've looked at it already, yes. Okay, we can address it.
Yes.
I'm just curious as to who decided which streets to do the traffic studies on. Under this permit, was that decided?
So TPD, they're in the report, they identify sort of standards, PennDOT and others, and it was ultimately all major streets. So I'm actually questioning the Norfolk piece because I think it's in there, but I will need to double check the report.
Because the township had reoriented a bunch of one-way streets in the area of Roslyn, where the Roslyn Swim Club is, because of that traffic. And whether or not people are adhering to those traffic patterns is another story, but the fact that the township had to step in after doing traffic studies and decide that yes, this was a huge issue, people trying to get from South New Street over to High Street, and to your point, Mr. Cohen, about opening T, that it has been a continuing problem. So my question was, who decided which streets were looked at, and how do we extrapolate when we have all these extra beds as to what that traffic is going to look like?
So again, I'm not the traffic engineer, but TPD, there is a report, and they do talk about the metrics and the data that they use and the models that they use to extrapolate.
I would just be curious as to how they came up with their model and how they decided what to look at, because from a professional point of view, I can see someone coming in and say, these are the roads we have to look at. But from someone who lives in the area, whether it's a student or a resident, those things might look very different.
Sure.
So,
Well, the report, I believe, is available.
It is.
So you're more than welcome
I'll
to.
go through it. Thank you, John.
In addition, on the website, there's a link there on it, so
Well,
I mean, overwhelming, but here it
someone
is.
asked about Norfolk, that's really piqued my curiosity.
So no, I can appreciate that. I will say, not from an engineering perspective, but anecdotally, one of the things that this plan is trying to do is we're trying to get more students of the 14,000 undergraduates on campus and keeping them here longer, right? So even if you're a commuter, the idea of having services available and having room, like a larger commuter lounge, those kinds of things, instead of those students getting in their car and driving somewhere, then coming back, the goal would be to keep them here and reduce the total number of trips. Again, that's anecdotal, right? The same way we can't control people making less when they're not supposed to. We can't control when students come and go, but that is a goal. Yes, sir.
That's okay.
I noticed on the slide that identifies stakeholders.
Yes.
No residents were questioned or talked to. It might save you time
to
put us in a group.
I could appreciate that. So we did have some town halls, and we did have residents that participated in those. I feel like I may have even seen you at one of them.
Everyone,
yeah. So, and we were listening, but we had to have something for you all to respond to.
Well, ultimately, we live a life of having to put up with the owners. I'd much rather like to be a partner and abused by the owners. I mean, talk about traffic in our neighborhood, stop signs are optional, one-way is optional. Hey, my driveway's open, park in it. You know, these are all things that, if you're having a traffic study, nobody called me or anyone else in here.
So a traffic study is an
I
objective
understand
look.
that.
Right.
It's
yeah.
all academic and no real life. I got you.
No, it's actual data-driven counts. And I think if you read the report, you'll see they were paying attention to how many cars were coming and going, how many cars make a left-hand turn at any particular intersection, very specifically the times of day. It is not
Well,
a subjective study.
As a person who drives Rosedale, Matlack Street, probably 4 times a day, the parking lot next to Swope and the parking lot on the other side of where the modulars are, if there's ever an empty space there, you can count them on one hand. So numbers of like 50% available, when were they there, on a Sunday?
So the 50% number was specifically South Campus.
Okay, well, how about?
So it was North Campus, it was 80%. And again, that's the entire parking capacity, inclusive of all of the garages, right? So not just surface lots, but also garages.
It's sort of like what we're saying is like when we had the town hall, the project started like 3 or 4 weeks after that. Where were we given to? It was our, I mean, it was a done deal.
That's not the West Goshen project or the Westchester Borough project, that's an East Bradford project. That's a different project.
We are approaching 9 o'clock.
Excuse me,
I just have one.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
just have one. I live on South Church Street, and I lived through the first renovation sites, and after it was already built, we were getting a lot of noise down our way from sites, so I'm just hoping that that's included in the renovations, in your planning of the building, so that the sound kind of goes towards the college. I know it's kind of hard to design that because of the airflow and all that, but, you know, if you can do anything, that would be greatly appreciated. Okay, that's all.
I appreciate it.
And keep in mind, if that project is going to move forward within the life of this master plan, there would be a separate application filed, and we'd have to come and present the details of the project to the planning commission and to the board of supervisors, and at that time, you would be able to see the plans and ask questions about the details of the project.
Yeah, that's a great
Thanks,
point, Brian. And
Chris, what does the planning commission need to do this evening?
So here's what I believe based on hearing everything. I would recommend that the planning commission not make a recommendation this evening. I kind of feel like there's some due diligence on Brian and his team's end, and we can come back on April 14th. We also didn't hear any of the comments from Danielle. Unfortunately, Danielle isn't available on April 14th, but she did. You sure? Yeah. Okay. So Danielle can be here on April 14th. Thank you. And I think it would be important to hear from Danielle on those comments, and also, I know Brian had passed out a letter that they've addressed some of those comments, so she can kind of respond to those in the next month accordingly.
So for this evening, you're...
I would recommend taking no action.
Can we ask it back at first?
Yes, we have a guy here.
Sure. Explaining.
Chris, do you want me to bring more kind of guy too?
Yes, please. So, we'll have the traffic reviewer from Urban Engineers along with Danielle, and we'll have Guy DiMartino from DPD, who's been here before, and he can come and discuss those items, because that seems to be the major.
And obviously, I have to check his availability.
Yes.
We'll figure something out.
Yeah. And we've seen guys come here before, so we've seen before. That would be my recommendation. The planning commission is in agreement with that.
Everybody agree? Okay.
Excuse me, just a quick one, just to reconfirm, Church and Cerrito are staying as they are? They won't be blocked off, cut off?
Our recommendation is that those remain.
Okay. What we didn't discuss is the thoroughfare from Hyde on Norfolk over to Roslyn. Is that changing at all?
This, you're talking about?
Yeah.
Sorry, this is,
I believe
yeah.
Mr. Talley said he was going to reconvene with TPD about that. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, we're not, the existing roadway, there's no recommendations to change it, if
Okay.
that's what you're asking.
Yes.
So,
Thank you.
Just for everyone in this room, so the next meeting is April 14th at 7 p.m. We're not going to send out an additional letter or anything about that, but the meeting date is on the township website. So April 14th, 7 p.m. Right back there.
Okay.
And I thank everybody for.
Thank
Always possible.
Folks, we still have another agenda
Thank you, I really appreciate it.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is number 7, amendment to the West Township comprehensive plan. Update us on that.
Okay, so I was contacted by the township manager of West Township, Neil Carter. They are pursuing an update to their comprehensive plan for the municipality's planning code. And essentially, as the cover letter notes, they're giving us notification as required. This is essentially to update for the pre-building property. And there's going to be updates with their future land use map, and they provided the text changes as well. And there's going to be updates to their zoning map. Essentially, it's my understanding that Cree-Billy is going to just be a preserved property going forward. So it's going to be preserved as open space. It's not going to be developed in any way. I believe there's going to be 4 lots created, if I'm remembering correctly. I don't really see any kind of an impact to West Goshen Township given the location of the Cree-Billy property on 926. So this is just a notification that's required under the municipality's planning code.
There are real estate sale signs up that would pertain to the 4 lots used.
I believe there's 4 lots that are being created.
For some reason, I thought there was more, but
If I'm remembering correctly, the proposal that was going through in 2020 was for around, I heard 1,000 homes or some astronomical number. That was subsequently denied by the board supervisor for Westtown Township, and if I'm remembering their vote correctly, it was for a lack of standing by the applicant. The township went ahead and they purchased the property, or they are in the process of acquiring it, or they did purchase it. I don't really know all the details. But this is just to update their comprehensive plan, their zoning map with that. That's all it is.
And there's already 3 or 4 existing residential lots?
I think they're creating 4 lots.
Yeah, but there are some on the property right now that are already developed.
Okay, there might be. I'm admittedly not too familiar with that. Yes, Doug?
The areas of Westtown that abut directly to our township, such as Larchwood off of Matlack Street and Stanton Avenue, that are borders, is anything significant going to happen in those areas that could affect the township?
As far as I know, I'm just going to go back to the letter that Neil gave me. No, the 3 bullet points are So there's a proposed zoning amendment for the Creeville Preserve, consistent with their preservation goals and referendum support. Proposed amendment to the Darlington Inn property isn't consistent with the future land use map, so they're going to update that accordingly. And then the proposed amendment to Westminster Presbyterian Church isn't consistent with their future land use map. And they're going to, the plan chapter is recommended to be revised to support the church's plan for attainable housing. I don't know where the Westminster Presbyterian Church is located, admittedly, but it appears that these are cleanup items.
Yeah, it's right on 202.
Right on 202.
Okay.
And really, the only reason why they're doing it is because it's required by the municipal code, because we're an abutting township.
Right.
It's amending their comprehensive plan, so it's really not going to impact us at all.
So,
But they just are required to let us know what they're doing.
So it seems like those considerations are more interior to the township.
Yeah, I do not, as Mr. Hellman said, I don't believe it has any impact to West Goshen Township, and it's a courtesy notification as required under the municipality's plan code.
That's right.
In all my years, I have rarely seen a township actually go through the process when they're making adjustments to their ordinances or comprehensive plan to, send things out to the adjoining townships. So I appreciate the fact that they're doing it, but as Doug just mentioned, because it's where it is, it's really not going to impact us.
So if the planning commission has any comments, I'm happy to forward them on to Westtown, but I don't see there's any comments necessary based on my cursory review of everything. I will bring it to the Board of Supervisors, but I don't think there's any probably in April, but I don't think there's going to be any action that's going to be needed.
I agree.
I don't think there's any traffic impact or any.
I don't believe so.
Maybe 4 cars a day.
And 920, the intersection of 926 and 202 is several miles from the jurisdictional boundary.
Yeah. All right, so we're taking no action. Let's move on to number 8, discussion and possible appointment of a new planning commission chair for the remainder of 2026. Please allow me to explain. I have to step down because I will be moving from the township for personal reasons. It's really hard to do this because I've been a resident of West Goshen since 1997, and I've seen the township grow and evolve from being a suburban township to almost urban township. When I became chair, I had a couple of things on my personal agenda, and I think many of you know I've been a land planner for 40 years. I was hoping that this commission could move from being a rubber stamp to the recommendations of somebody. I wanted people to recognize that we are no longer just a suburban township, that we are approaching being an urban township. There's very little land. And I also set out, well, 2 things. I set out to have the procedures to have the land development committee that we have, so that we have an open discussion with people wanting to bring proposals in before it actually gets formalized to us. And the supervisors were agreeable to that. And the last thing was, I was hoping that we could recognize that the zoning ordinance was a kind of a piecemeal document that was amended constantly over the years and needed to have a comprehensive view of you know, for the township, recognizing the change that as we see evolving. And so I've offered, and I believe in the packet that Chris sent out, I've offered my resignation with regret. I really wish I could stay, and I've made it very clear to the people I've talked to, whether it be Judy Goldstein or Corey, you know, the people I've talked to, I'll be sitting in the audience, you know, to offer my 2 cents worth, you know, because I really want to see this township, you know, work progressively as development, redevelopment occurs. And I want to stay involved as a former citizen. I will be moving to West Whiteland Township, again, personal reasons. And I'm going to make a motion tonight that we recommend Corey take my position as chair. I believe he has the leadership qualities. He and I don't always agree, which is fine, but I really think he could be stepping into this position in a good fashion. So I make that motion. Does somebody want to? You'll second it? Thank you. All in favor? Please say aye. If anybody's opposed, say so. Congratulations, Corey.
I appreciate that. Again,
And also, I just want to say,
I appreciate everything you've done. You have taken this commission to a good distance, so we do truly appreciate everything you've done for the township.
thank you for your service.
Yeah.
And likewise, I was just going to say, and it jumps right in front of me, I learned from the board as a board member, and I think I can speak for the board in this matter, really do appreciate your leadership and your vision and your insights and your leadership of this past number of years.
And I will continue to offer my 2 cents worth. All right, do we have anything? I don't have my agenda.
So the other item that's before the planning commission is with your resignation, that would create a vacancy for a regular voting member, and it would be my recommendation from a logistical standpoint, also a tenure standpoint. Andy is the senior most alternate member. He was appointed October of 2023. So I've spoken with Andy, and he is, I don't want to speak for him, he is interested, but it would be my recommendation that Andy be recommended to the Board of Supervisors to fill that vacancy.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you all.
I don't know if I'll vote.
You abstain, okay.
So that would,
Well, I don't know if you're letting some votes.
that would create a vacancy for an alternate member. So if you know anybody, we will be soliciting applications for an alternate.
I do know somebody, I think they're on another committee now, but they wanted to be on the planning commission. I think they represent the North Hills region of the township. So,
Geographically, that's good.
okay, good. Yeah, I didn't notice anything here. I know we have 2 from my end.
I live next to East Goshen, so I'm at the other end. Okay, Doug, you raise your hand.
Yeah, just thank you, Doug, for your service. Well, you'll be here periodically, so that's good. And I also wanted to thank Jeff Lieberman for his service. He's been on the planning commission for a long time.
I lost count, actually.
And, Jeff Lieberman, thank you, and also Terry.
Bye.
All right, I think we still have open comments.
We are, open comments. Is anybody in the audience?
No comment.
I guess we start
I have one comment, if it's all right. Doug and I just finished the 4 classes that the county offers, and I found it really rewarding and informative. And anybody who hasn't taken those yet, I would highly recommend them, both the land planning and the zoning classes. And they're going to be offering a traffic class in the fall. It's going to be like 2 nights, so people will think about that. But I think a lot of people have taken the classes, but we just finished tonight. I think Doug would agree that
It's a very good resource. The county sponsors the township, and they're very good.
Okay,
Thank you for your service.
Okay, then I hit this again. We're adjourned.
I'll be back again.
Yeah, make sure. I had to keep my mouth shut.
Thank you for being here.
All right, that was probably where else.
Require them to do that. When it comes before, when it comes to the board for subdivision,
Okay.
do have our ordinance in place to require.
Yes, you.
Come to the party. Pleasure enough. Take care.